Well, I will say this about Ryne Sandberg, and I agree with you to the extent that it's hard to gauge a guy with this type of talent that he's working with. You know, you're just not going to win. You could take Tony La Russa with this team, and he's not going to make this team a 500 team. But I think some of the issues, a lot of the issues come down to the fact that he's not a great communicator. He doesn't seem to be a great communicator, so a lot of players don't seem to know where they stand with him, and that's been an issue in the past. And I just think there's kind of that a little bit of a disconnect between manager's office and clubhouse that you definitely did not see with Charlie Manuel. I mean, you would see Charlie Manuel walking through all the time, talking to players. You don't see that with Ryne Sandberg. You don't really see that with the rest of this coaching staff. And I know some people say, well, who cares? These guys are millionaires. But a big part of managing a big league team nowadays is handling the personalities in the clubhouse and handling the people in the clubhouse and handling situations the right way. And I think that's kind of where he's really been falling short in that regard. And quite frankly, I think there are some kind of questionable lineup decisions at times, in-game decisions at times that are head-scratchers. And certainly Charlie Manuel made some of those from time to time. But, you know, hey, when a team is losing and is losing bad, those types of in-game decisions that don't work out stand out a little bit more.
Yeah, and look, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say he's done a great job. I don't say, man, he really looks like an up-and-coming guy. He does a lot of things outside the box. Or, I mean, to me, my personal opinion, he was not the right hire in the first place. It just seems like a tough spot for a guy who was on Charlie's staff for that. But they would have been better off just keeping him in the minors for that 1 year. Why bring him up and allow him to get relationships with guys, and now you have to become the main guy? And then you're trying to do a rebuild with the manager, and you've got all these old veteran guys. It was like this guy was in a no-win situation. But is it the right decision, Todd? Do they gain anything from getting rid of him this year? Do you think that's something that could happen, or is there nothing gained by firing him in the middle of this season?
Well, here's a question I asked Ruben Amaro Jr. the other day. How has he helped the younger players in this team? And I think that's a big thing that maybe the front office might be looking at is, have any young players really taken a step forward this season with Ryne Sandberg and this coaching staff? You know, you've seen Jake Diekman optioned. You've seen Darren Ruff optioned. You've seen Cody Ashley optioned. He's taken a step back offensively. You know, Freddie Galvis started out hot. He's been okay. You know, a lot of these younger guys, Justin Freitas has taken a step back. Ken Giles is still putting up good numbers, but not nearly as dominant as he was last season. And I think that's something that they'll kind of that a lot of people are going to be looking at as they kind of decide on that. So if they get to a point where the losing continues and they say, you know, we know we're going to be a bad team, but we've got to get these young guys on the right track, then maybe they make a move. But I do think that might be one thing that they look at.
Todd, what do you make of the possibility of bringing a new team president in now? Is that a good move, and is that something that is realistic? You know, and what would that person, for the people out there, you know, I guess that person would be replacing Pat Gillick, correct?
Yeah, that person would be replacing Pat Gillick, and I think the new guy, if it is Andy McPhail, which has been reported, and which, you know, people I've talked to say it seems inevitable that it is going to be him, he would take over the role. Pat's basically the president in charge of baseball operations. He doesn't handle the business side. I think if Andy McPhail comes in, he would basically take over David Montgomery's role, which he would be in charge of baseball side and the business side of the organization. And then Andy McPhail would have a general manager working underneath him. Now, could that be Ruben Amaro Jr.? Possibly. Probably not. He'll probably want his own guy. But the benefit of bringing in a guy like that now is, you know, the longer you wait, if he's going to be the guy, bring him in tomorrow if you can, because you don't want to wait on these types of decisions. These are decisions. These trades are going to be made over the next couple of weeks. Are going to shape the organization for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So you want, if you believe that Andy McPhail is the right guy to make these baseball decisions and get this organization turned around, it only makes sense, in my opinion, to get him in here earlier rather than later.
Do you think that he is a good hire? A lot of people respect him around baseball. I think it's an interesting situation that he was in Chicago with Sandberg. I'm sure they have some sort of relationship that he might have to be the guy that ultimately lets Sandberg go.
Yeah, that will be interesting for sure. You know, going back to what we were talking about earlier with Sandberg, it's just hard to picture him back next season, especially if you get a new team president, a new GM. Anytime you get a new president, he wants his own guys in the front office. The new guys in the front office, they want their own guys in the coaching staff. But could he be the right guy for the job? He certainly has a resume, 2 World Series championships with the Twins. He's been credited a lot for helping get the Orioles turned around, some of the biggest and best trades in Orioles history he made, bringing in Adam Jones and guys like that. So he had less success with the Cubs, but he had some success with the Cubs. It seems a very kind of safe pick in the sense that he's an established, long-time baseball executive, highly regarded in the baseball community. But like I said earlier, another thing to keep in mind is he would be president and CEO probably, and he would probably have a GM, or he would have a GM working underneath him.
Todd Zolecki, MLB.com, covers the Phillies with us. Pat Gillick, he said that he has not gotten involved in any of the Utley stuff about how to handle the playing time there. Is this going to be something that we are going to have to keep an eye on here? We know if he gets 500 at-bats, he gets $15 million next year. He's hitting 182. Do the Phillies want to prevent that, or is he Chase Utley and we want him back here no matter what?
I think they want to prevent that. I talked to Pat Gillick yesterday, and he said that, we have nothing to say about the lineup. That's all Ryne Sandberg's decision. I think that's just something that he felt like he had to say. I definitely think the front office, including Gillick, are having a lot of discussions about Chase Utley's future with the organization. You can't. And the question I asked Pat Gillick is, would it not be negligent for this organization to let him hit 500 plate appearances? I mean, he is hitting 182. That's a lot of money to commit to a guy who's certainly on the downside of his career. But that's what he said. Hey, it's Ryne Sandberg's decision. Every front office guy says that because they want the manager to feel like he's in control. But I would just say this: follow it very closely. He's only started 4 of the last 7 games at second base, and in the next few weeks it'll be interesting going forward to see how much time he plays. But I do think his playing time is going to start to drop. I think, like I said, it would almost be negligent for them not to have it drop.
Yeah, and obviously, that's something that, he's one guy that the fans, regardless of his performance, seem to back. Have you sensed, you probably get a lot of emails and a lot of tweets, have you sensed that people have somewhat bailed on Utley, or do you think he still has a lot of backing from the fans?
Well, here's the kind of the fan feedback I've gotten. They want him to be treated respectfully. They don't want him to be kind of like blindsided and just benched, kind of the way Ryne Sandberg treated Ryan Howard last summer, and the way what Ruben Amaro said on the air about Ryan Howard this offseason. They want him to be treated with respect, understanding he's the best shortstop in franchise history. He's meant a lot to this organization, but they also feel that it's time to move on. And I think the front office probably feels that same way. Let's move on, but let's handle this in the right way. Don't just show up one day at the ballpark and have Ryne Sandberg announce, yeah, we're going with Cesar Hernandez moving forward without talking to Chase Utley. Handle it delicately, but clearly, he's not part. 3 years from now, Chase Utley is not going to be on this team. So it makes sense to play Cesar Hernandez a lot more, and I think everybody seems to be on board, but it's just going to take time for that sort of thing to develop.
Todd, obviously we saw last week Chase Utley kind of give it to Bob McClure, and I guess by extension he gave it to Ryne Sandberg. Are the veteran players on this team, is there some disconnect between them and Sandberg?
Well, there certainly was the issue last year with Jimmy Rollins. There was the issue last year with Ryan Howard. You heard a lot of talk about a lack of communication between, I mentioned this earlier, a lack of communication between the manager's office and the clubhouse. You saw Ken Giles' reaction in Pittsburgh. You saw Utley's reaction the other day in Baltimore. Now, I talked to Utley about this yesterday. He said, listen, I didn't mean to disrespect Bob McClure. I've talked to him. We're on the same page. We have these discussions all the time. It just so happened that this happened to be in public, and, he regretted it now. But I definitely think that, like I mentioned earlier, Sandberg's weakness as a manager is communicating with his players. Cody Ashe, they told him in spring training he was going to probably learn how to play some left field. And then one day in St. Louis, Juan Samuel came up to him and said, grab your glove. We're going to learn how to play left field. And then he went out there. That's all he heard. And then one day, boom, they called me off and said, you're being optioned to AAA. I mean, no communication in terms of what the plan was going to be. Now, again, some people might say, well, who cares? He's a baseball player. He's paid to play. He should just kind of suck it up and deal with it. But out of respect for the player, you probably should say, hey, Cody, here's the deal. You're going to start the season playing third base. And at some point, we're going to have you move to the left field. And then, when it does time to do it, we don't want you to learn on the job in the big leagues. We're going to send you down to AAA for 2 weeks, learn the position, and then be right back up. But those conversations never took place, and those are the types of things that don't sit well in the clubhouse.
Yeah, I thought they handled that really poorly, and they were saying, they were trying to tell people, well, we didn't want them to learn on the fly. I don't understand if they didn't see this coming. They couldn't let them play spring training games and just say, hey, look, you're going to have to put in extra work. You're going to have to play 3 innings a game in left field just to get comfortable doing it. Because my question, Todd, was, what if he was hitting 320? Because I think it was convenient that he wasn't hitting that could send him down. But what if he was hitting 320? He got off to a hot start. Were they going to send him down in the middle of a hot bat?
Yeah, exactly. And now I totally agree with you there. And one of the reasons why they said that they didn't want him to play left field in spring training is they knew Michael Franco was not going to come up until the middle of May because of service time issues. And they wanted him to concentrate on third base to make sure he could be successful and maybe stay comfortable offensively. Obviously, it didn't turn out to make the decision easier for him. But again, going back to it, a lack of communication there, whether he's a good player or not a good player or whatever, you owe it to the guy to say, hey, listen, this is the plan, just so you know going forward. So he's not called in the office on a Monday night after a game and blindsided.
Todd, how are they handling the Hamels situation right now? For not the injury, I mean, obviously the trade. Have they played it well? They rolled the dice. They didn't trade him the winter. No spring training. They still have him. Or do people around baseball think that they are handling this the right way, and are they going to end up making out because they held on to him?
Well, it depends. Now, you talk to the other teams involved in Cole Hamels, and they kind of say, well, gosh, the Phillies got to hurry up and trade this guy. They got to hurry up and trade this guy. Now, I personally think the Phillies have done a bunch of things wrong over the last few years, personnel-wise, front office-wise. I think this is the one thing that they're doing right. If I'm Ruben Amaro Jr., I am not panicking right now. I would roll the dice and bet that Cole Hamels and Jonathan Papelbon and Aaron Harang all stay healthy. Hold on to them until you get something that you actually like. Phillies fans should remember one thing. Cliff Lee to the Mariners in December of 2009. That's what happens when you push into a trade that you aren't necessarily ready to make. They felt, David Montgomery told Ruben, if you're going to get Roy Halladay, you have to get some prospects back. They rushed into the Cliff Lee trade with the Mariners. They got 3 guys back. The trade is a huge bust. So if I'm Ruben, I think he's played this very well so far. I do not cave in to a team just because I'm worried about Cole Hamels getting hurt. Cole Hamels could blow out Wednesday, and you know what? Hey, he blows out Wednesday. But I would rather gamble and try to get something good than to panic and get 3 stiffs back and know that they're going to be stiffs in a couple years from now.
Todd Zolecki, as Pat Gillick said, people forget Ruben Amaro was a general manager in 9, 10, 11. It's not like he just got dumb all of a sudden. Obviously he's sticking up for his guy, but do you think this is the last couple months we see Ruben Amaro as the GM?
Yeah, I do, and I say that only because if Andy McPhail comes aboard, or if it's somebody else is going to be team president at this point next season and next spring training, and probably in a couple weeks from now there's going to be a new team president, and for that reason I think he's going to want his own guys in there. Now maybe Ruben goes out and makes 3 of the best trades ever: Hamels, Papelbon, Harang. Maybe he actually gets something for Chase Utley. Maybe he can actually peddle off Ryan Howard to somebody, and maybe Andy McPhail is absolutely blown away and goes, wow, okay, let's give this guy another chance. But I tend to think that won't happen.
Hi, Todd Zolecki, everybody, the Phillies and the Yankees. And I guess the indication is that Cole Hamels will pitch Wednesday, correct? Yeah,
he says, I didn't really talk to him. I asked him how he was doing and gave him the thumbs up. So I took that as he's ready to go on Wednesday.
All right, Todd Zolecki over at MLB.com. Make sure you check out the Zone for more on the Phillies as they take on the Yankees tonight at Yankee Stadium. Thank you, Zoe. Always a pleasure, bud.
No problem. Thanks, Mike.